Welcome back to OK Hobby Time. If you've been watching this channel, then you already know I'm a huge fan of resin 3D printing. The detail is unmatched, and printing my own minis has saved me hundreds, if not thousands, of hobby dollars. But it comes with some real downsides. Today, we're breaking down the 3 worst things about resin 3D printing and how to fix them. So why bother learning resin printing at all? If you're really into the painting and hobby side of collecting miniatures and are chasing that perfect finish, resin printing is the way to go. When it comes to capturing fine detail at a small scale, resin printers are still unmatched. On top of that, being able to print your own miniatures gives you access to an incredible community of creators who sell their models directly to hobbyists, which leads to significant cost savings. But over the years of 3D printing, I've noticed 3 big hurdles that stop people from jumping into resin printing: the mess, the fumes, and the quality of resin miniatures. Instead of accepting those trade-offs, I've been refining my process to solve each one, and after a lot of trial and error, I've landed on some solutions that have made resin printing cleaner, safer, and more reliable. And today, I'm excited to share exactly how I do it. We're going to start with what I think is the biggest hurdle for most people getting into resin printing: the mess. Compared to filament printing, resin does take more effort to master. You're working with a liquid material that cures under UV light, which means there are more steps and more opportunities for things to get sticky. If not careful, that usually looks like paper towels everywhere, resin on gloves, contaminated tools, and a workspace that feels harder to manage than it should. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that way. With a thoughtful workflow and a bit of preparation, resin printing can actually be clean, controlled, and surprisingly tidy. So here's the full workflow I use to print miniatures from start to finish, with as little mess as possible. In fact, this entire workflow is designed so my gloves don't come into contact with a single drop of liquid resin from start to finish. The process starts with filling the printer's resin vat. Pour carefully and avoid drips. Dirty resin bottles are a quick way to accidentally contaminate other surfaces. But here's a bigger tip. You don't need to empty the resin vat after every print. I only do this when changing resin types or storing the printer long term. Otherwise, the resin can safely stay in the vat, especially when paired with the ventilation tips I'll cover later in the video. Just make sure to give the resin a good mix before printing if it's been sitting for a while. With the vat now loaded with resin, we can send our files to print and wait patiently. The print is finished and it's time to post-process. This is where my workflow starts to separate from the common approach. With the models still attached, I'll dunk the entire build plate into my first wash container. This initial dirty wash removes most of the liquid resin, which keeps my second wash container cleaner for longer and lets it do a much better job overall. After the first dunk, I'll place the entire build plate into my second wash container inside the wash and cure station and let it run for about 5 minutes. This not only results in the build plate getting cleaned regularly, but it also eliminates one of the biggest contact points during post-processing, handling the miniatures themselves. By doing this, I avoid touching uncured resin altogether, which means no sticky gloves and far less mess. The one caveat is that your wash station needs to be filled high enough to fully submerge the build plate. That does mean using more cleaning solution up front, but the trade-off is that it takes much longer to become saturated and need replacing. With casual printing, these containers can last for months before needing a refresh. When that time comes, the cleaner container is rotated into the first wash, and the original first wash is refilled with fresh cleaning solution. Liquid resin is hazardous waste and should never be poured down the drain. Instead, I transfer the saturated liquid into an inexpensive sealed container, and once it's full, I take it to a local hazardous waste drop-off for proper disposal. I see a lot of comments about DIY washing and curing setups, and while there are cheaper ways to do this, nothing compares to the convenience of a dedicated wash and cure station with an extra container. For me, it's absolutely worth it. I'm printing with a Saturn IV Ultra, so the build plate is on the bigger side. Thankfully, brands have started releasing bigger wash stations specifically designed to handle these oversized build plates. That being said, if you have a smaller printer, you can get away with a smaller setup, which will also require less cleaning solution. A smaller footprint will save you on cost and is also more beginner friendly, something to keep in mind if you're just getting started. Okay, so after the wash is finished, I let my minis air dry right on the build plate, resting it on a piece of paper towel over a silicone mat. After a couple hours of air drying, the build plate should be completely dry and ready for the next step. I use a metal scraper to peel off the models and let them land on a paper towel. A lot of people recommend removing the supports at this stage, while the resin is still soft and uncured. The issue is that doing this means handling the models while they're still uncured, which quickly leads to sticky gloves. I treat gloves as protection against accidents, not something I want to rely on throughout the entire workflow. But don't worry, there's a way to temporarily bring cured resin back to that softer state, and I'll show you when we get to that stage. I'm going to place the supported models back into the wash and cure station, this time for curing. At this point, I'm handling the washed, uncured minis with a small pair of dedicated tongs, which lets me avoid direct contact. I'll usually run the cure process for a few minutes, depending on the size of the miniatures. Once complete, the resin is fully cured and the miniatures can finally be handled with bare hands. Now it's time to remove the resin supports. There's a simple trick that makes this much easier, often even easier than removing them before curing. A quick soak in hot water temporarily softens the cured resin, making it far less brittle and much easier to work with. I use a temperature that's hot but not boiling, around the range of 175 degrees Fahrenheit or 80 degrees Celsius. With hot water, the supports peel off effortlessly from the models, don't leave any scarring, and best of all, avoids any direct contact with uncured resin. I also get to use my bare hands, which makes removing supports on smaller detailed minis much easier because of the extra tactile feedback. A huge bonus to doing everything in this order is that it also significantly reduces hazardous waste. Because the resin was fully cured at this stage, the support material and the water used for removal can be disposed of normally. And there you have it, my resin printing workflow designed to create virtually no mess or waste, dramatically reduce the need for paper towels and gloves, and avoid direct contact with the resin throughout the entire process. It's not that different from a typical setup, but a few key changes allow me to print and post-process minis without getting a single drop of resin on my gloves and significantly reduce hazardous waste. Next, let's talk about the other big thing that worries a lot of people when it comes to resin 3D printing. When people research resin printing, ventilation comes up almost immediately. When resin is exposed to UV light, it undergoes a chemical reaction that causes it to harden. A byproduct of that process is the release of VOCs, volatile organic compounds, into the air. That's why ventilation matters. VOCs aren't something that you want lingering in your space over long periods of time. This is an area I'll admit I wasn't perfect at in the beginning. It's something I've improved over time. For a while, my ventilation solution was pretty simple, keeping the printers in my basement studio away from foot traffic, next to an open window with a fan circulating the air, and only running prints when I wasn't around. But I always knew it could be better. The gold standard is placing your printer in a dedicated enclosure and venting the air directly outside. Resin fumes aren't something you simply have to accept. With the right setup and a bit of preparation, they're completely manageable through proper ventilation. For my personal setup, I landed on an all-in-one solution from AC Infinity. And just to be clear, this isn't sponsored by them. I bought all this equipment myself. There are plenty of ways to build an enclosure, including DIY setups, but I'm firmly in the camp of spending a little extra to save on frustration. The system wasn't the cheapest option, but everything worked together seamlessly and the quality has been worth it to me. I went with a 2 feet by 2 feet by 4 feet enclosure, which fits the corner my printer sits in perfectly. This larger tent will allow me to open the lid of the printer with no issues, while also still having room for a dedicated ventilation fan that hangs inside. This is the fan that will pull the fumes out of the enclosure and vent it outside. It's important that the fan that's used has a strong enough airflow, measured in CFM, for the size of the enclosure it's placed in. I'm using 4-inch ducting, which connects to the fan and leads directly outside through a window adapter. This adapter was another piece that saved me a lot of time and effort. Everything fit together here seamlessly. The window I'm fitting this to is fairly small, so I did need to cut the plastic panel down in size, but this was done easily with an oscillating multi-tool. The adapter itself comes with enough panels to fit much larger windows as well. Overall, a pretty useful product. One bonus tip for fellow hobbyists, use a magnetic adapter so the same hose can double for other tools, for things such as an airbrush booth. I can move the hose from one setup to another, and it snaps into place using a set of strong magnets. I printed these adapters on my filament printer, so they're custom fitted to each tool and seal nice and snug. Because of the magnetic seal, I'm also able to place a piece of insulation foam between the connections to prevent air entering my enclosure when not in use. This setup has made a huge difference and gives me real peace of mind knowing I can enjoy this hobby more safely. Now for the final hurdle that keeps a lot of people from getting into resin printing, and it's one that's bothered me since day one. Once you get into this hobby and start printing your own minis, one thing becomes very obvious. Especially if you're used to Warhammer minis or other similar store-bought model kits. Cured resin behaves very differently from injection molded polystyrene. Most notably, it's incredibly brittle. The slightest of bends or drops to a resin printed mini will very often result in it breaking. This is particularly annoying if you're resin printing miniatures for tabletop games. It's pretty easy for accidents to happen when moving around minis, and a drop from a tabletop height is often enough for a resin print to break. Also, because resin is more brittle, it doesn't behave well under cutting pressure. When you take an X-Acto knife or clippers to it, the material doesn't flex, it shatters. Instead of slicing cleanly like injection molded polystyrene, the stress builds up and releases all at once, which is why small pieces tend to snap off unpredictably and sometimes go flying. That makes clean cuts harder and kit bashing more frustrating, especially if you enjoy that side of the hobby like I do. That being said, standard resin has definitely improved over time. It's not as glass-like as it used to be, but it still fractures more suddenly than polystyrene. Thankfully, just like the other two hurdles we've covered, this one has a solution as well. There are a few ways to address brittleness, and the first is using a flexible engineering resin like Tenacious from Soraya Tech. On its own, Tenacious is extremely flexible, too flexible for miniatures printed with 100%. The real trick is mixing it with standard resin. Most new bottles of resin ship with a bit of empty space at the top. When I open a fresh bottle of standard resin, I simply top it off with Tenacious to fill that void. Close the lid and give it a thorough shake. Even that small addition noticeably increases toughness without sacrificing detail, and because I'm only adding a small amount once per bottle, it ends up being surprisingly cost effective. However, if you're chasing the best and quality is top priority, there's another suggestion I can make to combat brittleness, and that's Wargamer Resin by Yes That's 3D Printed, in collaboration with Fohammer. This has quickly become one of my favorite resins. If you're chasing high quality miniatures for tabletop gaming, this stuff delivers. Prints come out looking and handling much closer to store-bought injection molded minis, with tons of detail and a great balance of flexibility and durability. It's tough straight out of the bottle with no need to mix with other resins, and perhaps most notably, it's water washable. Not only does this resin improve durability, it simplifies the washing process and eliminates alcohol fumes by removing IPA from the workflow entirely. Quick but important disclaimer, and this applies to any water washable resin. You still need to treat the byproduct as hazardous waste. Just because it's water washable does not mean it's safe to pour down the drain or rinse prints in your sink. The main benefit is that water is significantly more cost effective and doesn't carry with it the strong odor that IPA does. So how strong is Wargamer Resin? The manufacturer of the resin challenged me to the unreasonable Wargamer challenge. The goal? To push the resin to its limits. And honestly, my bar isn't extreme. If a mini can survive being knocked over or falling from a tabletop height, that's more than enough for real-world use. And in both cases, it handles it without any issues. Now let's see what happens when things get unreasonable. Can these minis survive being dropped from the top of my shelf? Surprisingly, yes. What about from the top of my stairs? Also yes. Distracted while gluing the mini to a base? No problem. Poorly transported in a backpack? Who needs a carrying case? Accidentally mistaken for dice? I'm starting to feel bad for these minis. Resins like this solve one of the biggest pain points in resin 3D printing, durability, giving you tabletop minis that can actually handle gameplay without shattering every time they get knocked over. Now I think it's time to give these poor minis a break. After everything they've been through, I'd say they've earned a proper paint job. So what's the takeaway from this video? We've covered 3 of the biggest hurdles that stop people from getting into resin printing, and more importantly, solutions to help overcome each one. And there's a clear pattern. Creating an easier and more enjoyable experience with resin printing requires more preparation and often a bit more upfront cost. I think resin printing gets a bad reputation because so many people jump into the hobby primarily to save money on store-bought minis. And while this is an undeniable benefit, it has the possibility of introducing a hidden tax on the user experience when the setup is entirely optimized for price instead of function. The way I see it, you're always paying for something, either upfront with better tools, materials, and preparation, or later through frustration, mess, and troubleshooting. When approached thoughtfully, resin printing doesn't have to be intimidating, and it becomes one of the most powerful creative tools you can bring to your hobby table. Resin printing has allowed me to collect minis and other useful bits from some of the most talented miniature sculptors around the world. And it's this growing group of creators who have chosen to go direct to consumer that has been the ultimate reward for learning this hobby. Alright everyone, that wraps up this video. For more resin information, check out my Getting Started guide for beginners, or feel free to drop a question below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.